And Boris Johnson got a welcome reprieve from his Partygate pasting in the Commons yesterday when one of his MPs, Peter Bone, switched gears to the ever-present issue of the BBC, draining cash from TV viewers via the licence fee.
In this day and age, it's ridiculous to have a state broadcaster. It's ridiculous that people are forced to pay a fee just because they have a television. And what is totally wrong, that people who believe the BBC to be institutionally biased have to subsidise them. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister, if he's free on Friday, come along and support the bill?
I understand some of his strictures about the BBC, Mr. Speaker. I would also say that it is a great national institution, but I will study what he has to say with interest.
Now, tomorrow MPs will debate Mr Bone's bill to abolish the poll tax and make the BBC a subscription service. But before that, it's your turn. Tell me now, should the BBC licence fee be scrapped altogether? Email me, dan@gbnews.uk, tweet me @gbnews, and that's where you'll also find our poll. I'll bring you the results very shortly. But to help you make your mind up, let me bring in Peter Bone, who will be defending his bill against one of the BBC's most beloved former faces, their royal correspondent of the past, Jenny Bond. Now, Peter Bone, let me start with you. I really feel like Boris talked tough on the BBC when he came to power, and as soon as he got into Downing Street, he's turned into a pussycat. He's done absolutely nothing to clip the Beeb's wings.
Well, I think it's fair to say he's done nothing to clip the Beeb's wings. But the problem was Prime Minister had to get Brexit done, and then we were going to move forward with all these great reforms, and then look what happened. COVID hit us, and it's only just now we're coming out of COVID that we can get back to a Conservative agenda. And things like, this isn't scrapping the BBC, but it's changing it to a subscription service. So if you want the BBC, you can pay for it and have it. If you don't, like me, I wouldn't have to pay it. I wouldn't have to pay my £157 each year for something that I don't support, who I think are institutionally biased.
Jenny Bond, why should Peter Bone, someone who has choice as a consumer to subscribe to various different services, why should he be forced to pay all of that money to the BBC when he believes it is a institutionally biased organisation?
Well, good evening, Mr Bone. Good evening, Dan. First of all, I have to say I do not believe that the BBC is institutionally biased. This is put about, but I would, with respect, say that perhaps you have not worked for the BBC for 26 years in the body of the newsroom as a senior news editor, a senior news correspondent, and subsequently in the further 20 years still work for them. I presented the Today programme with Brian Redhead, with John Humphreys, with Sue McGregor, presented the news with Peter Sissons, with Anna Ford. I didn't know any of their political beliefs. None of us knew one another's political beliefs. It is not biased. We get slated, the BBC, I should say, because I don't work for them anymore, but they get slated from left and from right. And it's an old adage, I know, but if you're getting slated from left and from right, you're probably just about in the middle and just about correct.
Jenny, can I just put it to you? Can I just put it to you that there's been a big change over the past few years, and the BBC even admitted themselves when it came to Brexit that they were institutionally biased. They had a complete blind spot. They didn't see it coming.
I do not believe that they conceded that. I really didn't know which side of the argument the BBC were on, because they weren't on the side of the argument. Honestly, we're all professional journalists. We know what our job is. It's to go out there, establish the facts, give one side, give the other, and give perhaps a bit of analysis if you are an expert correspondent, as I was.
So
beyond that, it's up to the viewers to make up their own minds.
OK, so Peter Bone, Jenny Bond said you're completely wrong. The BBC isn't institutionally biased. Why do you think it is? I mean, she's worked there.
Well, she rightly brought up the issue of the Brexit debate, and analysis has shown that out of every 6 speakers on the programme, 1 was a leaver and 5 was a remainer. On question
time... And if you're the leaver, you're not in a comfortable place at the BBC, believe me.
But on question time, which should have been a balanced programme, it always had more remainers. I ran the second biggest Brexit campaign in the country, the Go movement. I had Tom Pursglove MP and Councillor Harrison, none of us was ever invited to go on Question Time. Now, I would say that's biased. Now, Jenny says she doesn't recognise it, which is why I think it's institutionally biased. I think people at BBC don't think they're biased, but they actually are. And irrespective of that, I should have the right not to subscribe to it if I don't want to. It's, what is it, £3.5 billion they get from the licence fee payer? And they can use that money however they like. They don't have to produce good programmes. They have to do what you do and ITV and Sky does. And I mean, just the last point. Can I just put the last point on this?
Yes, of course.
Quite important. It's interesting that you're running this story tonight. ITV have run this story. The newspapers are running the story about my bill. Guess the one organisation that hasn't covered it on its website, hasn't invited me to do an interview. Now, BBC, if you're really this independent, why don't you have me on the Today programme tomorrow to discuss this? Stop hiding away. Stop pretending this bill's not coming tomorrow. And that's why I say it's institutionally biased, because Jenny sincerely believes they're not biased. I think they are.
Jenny, can I just ask you about that whole issue of consumer choice? Can you understand that we're in a different age? We don't have 3 or 4 or even 5 channels now. There's a plethora of choice. And young people find it just a complete anathema that they are forced to pay for any service.
But this is a quality service, and it's a service that you pay for the price of a coffee, £3 a week per household, not per person, £3.
But I don't watch the BBC, so I get nothing from that, and I watch other channels. So
radio, but the radio output, which I'm an absolute radio addict.
No.
All the radio channels, 40 local radio channels, they play such a big part in community life. Now, that could not be funded any other way. I do agree that we perhaps could have adverts on some of our channels that might bring the cost of the licence fee down a little bit, because goodness me, the jingles they play go on forever. So why don't we have an advert maybe on Radio 1, maybe even on 5 Live? But to be able to watch television, quality television, which is admired and respected around the world, not just the news service, but the rest of it, without advert breaks, is a price, worth a cup of coffee.
OK, but Peter, for me, I don't watch BBC TV, I don't listen to the radio, and it infuriates me that I still have to pay the licence fee because I want to watch any television. That's what's so unfair about it, right?
Yeah, I mean, just go back to Jenny's point. Maybe the BBC in the past did make high-quality programmes, but this year, of the 15 documentaries that are being nominated for a BAFTA award, only one of those is from the BBC. So it does appear to me, when we only had, 3 television stations, BBC One, BBC Two and ITV, that argument could be made. But there are plenty of other organisations now making high-quality programmes, and I have to say, in many cases, better than the BBC.
Jenny, do you think
it's also very much admired around the world? I mean, you've travelled the world, Mr. Bear, and I'm quite sure it's as much as I have. And I have to say that the respect that is put towards me, because I work for the BBC, but generally towards this global network is extraordinary. They are so envious of the quality of our programming. I agree that other networks are coming up as well. But I go back to my point that it is just a price of a cup of coffee for a vital and really...
Yeah, but we're forced to all pay that. Jenny, can I just ask you about the idea of patriotism in the BBC? Because I fully concede that when you were there, and I think the BBC was still great in the late 90s, actually, it was a patriotic place to be. But have you seen how recently they seem to snare at the concept of being British and especially being English? They are refusing to reinstate playing the national anthem at the close down before going to BBC News every night on BBC One. And you saw 2 of their presenters on BBC Breakfast quite literally laugh because a Conservative cabinet minister displayed the Union Jack flag behind him. Why do you think the BBC seems to hate Britishness and Englishness these days?
Well, that's nonsense, Dan. Of course they don't. And all this, I mean, for goodness sake, you're talking about moving with the times. I mean, do we want the national anthem? Do we want to stand up for the Queen in our lounge as the network closes down?
I think it would be an important thing.
We have moved with the times.
Peter, do you think the BBC lacks patriotism?
Well, I do, but just on the last bit about the national anthem, yes, I think it should be played. If we have a state broadcaster, and I don't think we should, if they weren't funded by the licence fee and the taxpayer, well, it'd be up to them to make their own mind up. But if you are the state broadcaster, when you're closing down, why not play the national anthem? I'm proud of the Queen. I'm proud of the monarchy. And I think the vast majority of people who pay the licence fee would like to see it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it would alienate the BBC even more from the younger generation, which Dan says we are alienated from, which is probably true.
They don't watch it anyway. They don't watch it anyway. But look, fascinating debate. Thank you so much for having that. That was Peter Bone, the Conservative MP and former BBC royal correspondent Jenny Bond. So who do you agree with? Well, Keith on Twitter says, who actually watches the BBC? The biased and woke channel of the year. I'm with you there. Phil on email says, Dan, of course the licence fee should be scrapped. It's completely outdated. Are there any other countries where you have to pay an annual fee to watch TV? The BBC should get their money through syndication and advertisement. Then they can broadcast as much left-wing nonsense as they want. But Dan on Twitter asks, what would you replace it with? Remember just how many things the licence fee covers.